welcome to another episode of Alan Writes. This is number 6 in our series of The Winter of Truth, which is a bit of fan fiction and a bit of Star Wars, a bit of a thriller. I apologize for last episode, number 5, because apparently I had somehow turned off the mic while futzing around with the settings, and so no audio was downloaded. Naturally, this was my best stuff, where I was really insightful and, in fact, had covered the meaning of life. If you missed that, well, it's too bad. I'm not repeating the performance. That does get us to the part of one of the most difficult things concerning writing is writing, is continuing to write, is finding the energy, the time, and the mind space in order to do so. And often I've found that the biggest thing that gets in my way is other people. Well, that's just the way it is. It's not necessarily energy. I can summon the energy if I have to, or drink hot chocolate. I can do a lot of things to get the energy. To get the time, you can generally scrape out a bit of time if you're willing to reduce some of your free time or other activities, or just cancel on social events and be a hermit. See, it's easy, but the real problem is other people, where they will, if you have a significant other, they will ask for your time because they're your significant other, and you can't exactly just turn them down. You can ask them to cordon off certain amounts of time for you, but you have to do that ahead of time. And sometimes when you feel like writing, you get into it, and then they ask you for your help with the laundry or something, and then you got to get up and do that. That's just the way it is. For me, there's also no, that's a made-up word. Fine. There's also the problem of it gets into inertia, where if you don't write for a while, it's hard to write. These things just, you can't get the momentum to keep going. You can't get the momentum to finish a project, even if it's the first draft. And you'll see that I've encountered that with my previous effort of Lightning Strikes, where I decided it was just too much work to plot out the entire novel and get it done, because it was going to be too long. It was going to be too winding and twisty, and I had other things I want to do. And that's unfortunately also a thing of that, where there's always a next dangly project that's easy to start and easy to move forward, at least in the beginning, but it's hard to finish. Finishing is difficult. Whenever you finish something, make sure to reward yourself in some way, because, well, you deserve it. So, what did we miss last time? It was some dicking around on the, basically she's going to Hoth. I've introduced an ensign character, an Imperial Naval ensign, Launer, who is just trying to keep things together. They seem to get along well enough. They've got similar tastes. Whether or not he's going to be an impediment or a help later on, I'm not sure. I'm putting him in the mix right now because, like with most thrillers, you're not really sure where you're going to end up, but you want to have a good stable of characters so that they can interact down the line, so that you don't have to introduce new characters at some juncture. And then the reader's like, well, I don't know anything about this person, and this seems like everything's happening just too conveniently, or that you're just, it seems impossible that the hero's ever going to go anywhere. And if that's that sort of story, if that sort of thriller where it's impossible odds and they fail, well, then you've set things up correctly. And that's the time when you want to be like, I'm going to introduce new characters the reader's never seen before or read it before, and that's a problem for them. And there you go. All right, so now we're on Hoth. We skipped to Hoth, and again, this is part of where I would probably start if it was a movie, I would start it here, with her stepping off into Hoth with all of her gear in tow, and there's stormtroopers that she's not really in charge of, marching past down the ramp, trying to get things into the base before everything freezes over. All right. And a biting cold filled the air, the kind that clung to your bones and refused to let go. The planet, was a brutal white that shone even through her protective goggles. Welder glass ship's doors that she'd acquired after helping with a maintenance. Bit of maintenance. Her wasn't the first down the ramp. That benefit, that honor went to Lawner and his DT troopers, who used the grav sleds to push all the perishables and fluid-filled containers off first and hurry them toward awaiting transport. Then she finally got a chance to take her first step. Hoth wasn't a sheet of ice. It was cut and torn with blue where things had melted, where snow had melted and then frozen back over with bits of propellant, with dark hues lodged inside. A road, if you wanted to call it that. Yeah, so the rebels carved out hangars. Yeah, what happened to the hangars after they left? Well, some of the base melted. Let's put it that way. They, if they didn't set the heat generators on overload when they left, I would be very surprised. So, it's a classic villain move, but in this case, it's a rebellion move to deny the Empire a base or information or anything else that they could gather up in the wake of a successful assault, because it was going to be a successful assault. There was no way the rebels were going to repel firepower of that magnitude and withstand a siege from an Imperial armada. They simply weren't in a position to do that at this time, certainly. It just wasn't going to happen. That's one of the motifs that in the recent Star Wars film, what was it, The Last Jedi? I know people pan it a lot, but it had some good elements. In fact, one of those was that the Resistance could not take on the New Order one-on-one and could not trade lives one-on-one or even one-on-two. They could sell their lives dear at, but it still wasn't going to matter against the New Order. It wasn't enough to be, because once the Resistance had to merely exist in order to stop the New Order. And when certain maneuvers were made, that became impossible. But of course, much of the movie end up being impossible. I won't get into that. It was obviously rushed in production, and they didn't have a chance to round some of the corners that they should have. All right, a road, if you wanted to call it that, and off toward a gray toward gray walls, toward a splotch of gray in the distance. The Imperial prefab base, fabricated. An Imperial prefab. That was going to be interesting. She thought as she pulled her own grav sled down the ramp. it was heavy with her with the materials, her trade. Analyzers, computational, what do they call that? Computational design matrix. I dislike using the word matrix, but we'll see what we know. A computational design matrix and precator, all of which she'd fabricator, all of which she'd adapt to the cold. Well, she could, applying heating elements in places that would last as long as they had power. All right. Is she going to be met here? I don't know. You know, I don't think so. I don't think so. The D2 troopers loading pellets. I don't think that's the right word for pellet. Yeah, that's better. Different sort of pellet. Pellets transport a standard, and I don't know what type it is. All right, standard Imperial designated transport. With rollers instead of apparently the had apparently a cold adaptation, or else apparently a cold adaptation. Judging from the metal studs that covered the all right, so I don't know if I'm going to keep that. Basically, the Empire had no idea what they were getting into, and you know, I don't think I'm going to keep that. I don't think I'm going to keep that. The Empire literally jumped into the system. It's part of Blizzard Force, though, so they'd have cold adapted vehicles. I'm going to say that they left one of theirs. There was just barely room back for her own sled, for which she thanked the troopers. Not a problem, ma'am. You take care. You take care out here. Them said. Let's see, what designation do I want to give him? If she remembers right. Strange that they use even in private. Said in a thick world accent. He was, but that was a lot of storm trooper. They didn't talk much about their training. Which gives us back to, are the stormtroopers clones? And the answer is no. No, the cloning facilities had long since been blown up. Most of the actual clones have either died in combat or been transferred to more important positions. That leaves in new waves of enlistments to the stormtroopers, where people are taken off planet and indoctrinated. Mostly voluntarily. Sometimes they will raise kids, as seen in the New Order, because why wouldn't you? The waste not, want not for the Empire, right? Didn't talk much about their training or what they did. They weren't on a mission. Sometimes them talking about speeders or a child, but that was okay. Will do. Thanks again, she said, and made her way forward to the cab. She was shivering by the time she got the door open. She was shivering by the time she got the door open. Her 2 layers of some sort of special fabric. Frigid, recticine, phlogisine, Flumatops. Why do I want to start everything with an F? Grexlux. Failing to keep back biting chill. And this was when the sun was still high in the sky. When the near sun, not the near sun, that implies there's 2 suns. When the sun, it just was still high in the sky. All right. She shivered by the time she got the door open. She got to the door. Let's save the door opening for later. To the door. Her 2 layers. Mittens, hood, mask, heavy boots. All of it just barely enough. Barely enough. apparently enough. Hopefully there was a way to plug in. Hopefully her heated bedroll would have any problems. Door to the transport refused to budge. She checked for ice. But there wasn't enough. Locked then. She banged on the side and yelled. Nothing. Thankfully, the lock wasn't much to look at. A simple fob and signal. Simple fob and signal arrangement. She retrieved her comm. To scramble, ignoring the bite of cold that paled her skin. While she worked it. Something inside clicked, and she yanked at the handle before anyone could contradict her method. Inside was okay. Who's this going to be? Who did they send on driver? So it's a driver. Imperial Army. What does the Imperial Army look like? Much like the Imperial Navy. Slightly different cut. Inside was an army soldier, swaddled head to toe in standard issue uniform. Swaddled head to toe. No, not in standard. Side was a figure swaddled head to toe in bulky Karas cloth. The same that the Blizzard Force crews had been issued. In haste. Could only tell he was army by the way his insignia on his helmet peeked out from beneath the brim of. Hey, called out. She pulled herself up. Hey, you can't just. She thrust her orders at him. Transport to the base. Whatever it's called. You've got space. You've got space, right? Oh. Sake. Get in. Close the door. Called her and grumbled until it was closed. Then he a knobbed fool, and hot air blew out the vents. Turned a knob, you know, a knob, like a in Britain. Yeah, that makes no sense. All right, so then close the door. Let me see them. He grabbed the orders and rolled his fingers her pseudo rank topped his, but out here her pseudo rank topped his, but out here she no, her pseudo rank topped his, so there shouldn't be a problem. There wasn't. He handed the Zetapad back. Okay. Was already cold. So there shouldn't be a problem. Okay, I don't know. What is their relationship right now? He just wants her off his goddamn transport and not to make him warm. She is another task, another liability, another thing for him to do. Trouble? She asked. Always. These runs aren't easy, he said as he powered up the as he peered out his peered through his window. He had gotten some kind of gesture. He must have gotten something because he powered up the because he powered the holsters and don't get in my way. Don't get in my way. Dream of it. It is your profession. Said, yeah? What's yours? He asked as the is it did I say it as a repulsor sled? I don't know. Waiting transport. It's a transport. As the transport lurched into the the air, pushing the air, wobbling more than a little as the repulsors tore open the scrambled, a steady push off. All that ice and snow melting and thawing must make for trouble. I'm an engineer. I'm an engineer tasked with combat data analysis for vehicles. She said, want to talk about the difficulties of pulsar operations? Did I, no, shit. Metal studs, it's got rollers. Lurched forward a little. A little. The rollers scrambling for a steady grab hold of. Yes, I'm ending it with a preposition, sumi. All that items of the melting must make for trouble. Want to talk about the difficulty of operations? Out here, you have these, he asked, as transport and to gain momentum. The ice is thick. Yeah. Do you have a couple of days? Taking taking them toward. Okay, this is where I would, in a movie, I would cut to her at the base. We have an opportunity to talk with him about things here, if she can get him to open up. The question is, will she get him to open up? Yes, about her job, maybe she doesn't, that she doesn't consider it. Do you have a couple of days? Yes, actually. Well, I don't. Yeah, any longer than I have to be. Neither would I. Neither would I. Great. We agree. On what? That one of us is going to shut up. Shut up. So, Annie, then we. I don't want to be here. And I don't want to be here. Neither would I. Great. And we have to be talking with others. Talking just gets you more work. more work. I had to complain about the kitchen. I had to complain about the mess hall. Told me so. Tenant told me to go eat out. And here I am, enjoying my lunch. My breakfast. You pointed at the wrapper of a nutrient bar. Oh, what was the thing? The Germans used them in Knackelbrot. Knackenbrot? Hey brother, have you tried Knackenbrot? Was I think what the label said? Anyway, it was pretty horrible crackers. Kraken hat. Brand. Bright, cheerful label. You'd only eat in half. You'd only eat in half. The driver had only eaten half. They'll get things, she said, confident they would. After all, it was a new base. We're bound to be, what do you call it, early troubles? Bound to be some fumbling about at dawn. And there was bound to be some fumbling about at dawn. Yeah? Well, aren't you in for a treat? And this is our introduction to the fact that the base isn't, she also doesn't say goodbye to Bonner. She has to say goodbye to Lawner. He doesn't have to stay here. Or does he? No, he and the DT troopers will be on the next transport. Which makes sense. They'd actually be a person transport rather than just the spare space in the cab. So Lawner and his DT transport troopers are... Why are they here? They're part of the Navy contingent. Naval Logistics Contingent. Soon to be exiled to the landing pad base. They're going to set up a base at the landing pad to both keep the Army and Navy separate and to piss on each other's coffee, so to speak, because they don't like each other, and the Navy's trying to edge in on this base, and the Army doesn't like that. He'll be around. Eventually to be exiled. The DT troopers are going to be spread out for similar reasons, used where needed. Okay, so there we go. The Kraken. Kraken hat brand with the bright, cheerful Yellow label. You tried it? Quickly yelled, have you tried it? The driver had only eaten half. Okay, so there we go. All right, well, that's going to have to do it because I'm at the 40-minute mark. I hope you have enjoyed this hopefully fully voiced episode of Alan Writes as we continue to battle the winter of truth and keep our the inertia from keeping us down, keep going forward, figure out what the cut and thrust of this is, because it being fan fiction, I have a whole universe already established. I don't have to do things like go research lightning and weather projects and other stuff, and a whole bunch of details to gin up for a given town. Much of this is going to be playing off of somebody else's universe, which is the advantage of fan fiction, and also its detriment, because you don't really own anything in here. It's not yours. You can't just change things on a whim. You can't make wholesale changes, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. All art has limitations. But, like I said, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope you stay safe and have a good day. Thanks.